about to join the conference.
Today is Monday, January 25th, 2021, and we are here for another school board workshop. On the agenda today, we have the Audit Committee Policy Review. Second, the agenda review for the January 26th regular meeting, followed with good of the order and adjournment. And if we could start with Ms. Dupree-Bruno, please.
Good afternoon, Board. Today,
I'm sorry, Ms. Dupree-Bruno. Do we have anyone on the phone? Ms. Giovanelli or Ms. Gittens, I believe, is on her way. Is Ms. Giovanelli online? Ms. Giovanelli, are you here? Okay, I'm not getting any response. So, Ms. Dupree-Bruno, would you please go ahead and start? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. Today, I wanted to present to you a very, very rough draft of the Audit Committee based on some conversations that we had previously, and I hope you've had an opportunity to review this draft. I believe the best way to move forward is to have some guided conversations. I need some responses and some guidance as to what you would like to add or take out from this proposal. And the first thing I would like to know, in the proposal it says that there is a school board member who would serve as a liaison and would be a voting member. May I have a consensus as to whether or not you want that removed? That would be my first question.
Removed.
Removed. Removed.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So it carries.
And the proposal also states that the superintendent and the board attorney would be a member of that committee. Am I to also assume that the board does not anticipate for them to be a voting member of that committee? May I have a consensus on that?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, did she say is or is not?
Is not.
Is not a voting member.
Right.
And does the board also want the CFO to participate in this committee? May I see if you are in agreement for the CFO to participate? May I have a show of thumbs? Yes, ma'am.
You participate as a non-voting attendee?
As a non-voting attendee.
Voting.
I have a question. Could the CFO have a designee?
We can add that. If you want a designee instead of the actual CFO, we can do that.
And the superintendent as well, who should have a designee as well,
Right.
right?
So if they can't make it,
Okay. So may I have a consensus that the superintendent and the CFO may have a designee, and of course, the CFO will be a non-voting member as well?
correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else, before we go into the constituent part and their participation, is there anyone else that you feel should be a part of this committee? Ms. Patrica?
I was, in looking at other policies for districts across the state, I saw that a lot of them include a DAC member. I know that there's a lot of discussion at the table frequently about the fact that we're not necessarily including parents, and given the high level of technical knowledge that I think is going to be necessary for these 7 people to be on the committee, I think we can be sure to include a parent if we have a DAC member. And I'm wondering, in addition, whether a member of the Finance Committee should be a member of the Audit Committee. And I'm also wondering whether TALC and/or SPALC, along with a principal, a representative of the principals, should be considered non-voting attendees who are invited to every meeting, as opposed to them getting a notice, a public notice, as we all do, or as every member of the public does. Let the principals know that they're included through a representative to attend, and let, what was the other one I said?
DAC, Finance, Principal, TALC, SPALC.
Yeah, TALC and SPALC know that they're invited to attend every meeting as a non-voting attendee. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, but do you think that we're going back, I mean, before we say who's in this, should we be saying what this committee does before we start? I mean, are we going backwards? We're saying
If I could just, because we did talk a little bit about it, but we will go back to some more of the details. If I could just figure out right now who you want on the committee, that would help me out a lot. Just want to know who you want.
Yes, I think we should be very clear that selecting people from the existing committees means that we're selecting the same people to do a different job. And the community and people that I have spoken to are very clear about the fact of inclusion of different people. We have our advisory boards and the people that are on there, and they are part of the community, so as part of being invited, I don't see where that's necessary. The public it's a public meeting, and everybody is allowed to see it. So a special invitation to them I don't think is necessary. And I really hope that we look at including different individuals, not just people that are already on existing committees.
Ms. Morgan?
So I'm not about including other people on the committee. I look at this committee, as you said, what is the purpose of the committee, as being essentially subject matter experts who are providing financial advice to the board based on audit comments. And so I think it needs to be just that. I think it's open to the public. Certainly other people can attend. But I would be leery about people who have other issues representing other committees getting into the mix with, the role and responsibility of the audit committee.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with what both ladies just said, that we should have people, especially finance, because finance is likely to talk about some of the same topics, and that might color somebody's view. Of course, they can watch the finance meetings. What I would include in this, as that I noticed many of the school districts said specifically members of the community that live in Lee County. I don't remember if that's in our, is that in our other advisory that they live in Lee County?
So I have not actually seen the word Lee County in the other district. I'm sorry, in Board Policy 1.20.
Yeah, I noticed, and I'm just putting it out there, but I also think, and I saw this in at least one of the descriptions from another county, no one who is a district employee should be. The thing about Lee County, probably they'll all be Lee County, but I would like to see, while we're talking about the composition, that it shouldn't be anybody who is an employee of this school district.
Okay.
So can we go back to the first proposition, and just so I can see a consensus as to where the board is, whether or not you want to include someone from DAC, finance, principals, or talc and spelk? Can I see
Well,
where the board is?
We have, okay, when ISOC came, when we formed that, we had people that were on finance, I believe, and some that were on EDAC that opted to get off of those committees because they wanted to be on, their expertise was actually what ISOC needed. So they chose to be on that, and then they were, actually, one of us had to put them on there because we created that. So I would say that I would be opposed of not allowing, if you're on a committee, not to be a part of that, especially if they have the knowledge and the expertise.
So I will add one thing. One of the thoughts was to reference Board Policy 1.20 in this new policy, which is the policy that addresses all of the other advisory committees. And in addition, Board Policy 1.17, which is the school board internal audit function. In 1.17, it does say that the internal auditor should meet with the other advisory committees to gather information as they develop the audit plan. So we can include that language that will include some feedback from all of the advisory committees as the committee is creating its own plan.
Ms. Fisher had a question.
I was going to ask, go ahead, Ms. Fisher.
Yeah, my comment from before was I think definitely we need somebody from the finance advisory and not necessarily a district employee.
Yeah. Ms. Giovanelli? Ms. Giovanelli, are you there?
Yes, I actually agree with what Ms. Fisher just said.
Please restate.
Hold on. I agree with what Ms. Fisher just said. That exact statement, actually, that was what I was just thinking.
And could you repeat that then?
That Ms. Fisher said it should consist of some people from the finance advisory, and not an employee
Thank
of
you.
the district.
Thank
and
you.
I would agree with that.
Ms. Gittens?
I just, when I hear the word, the people with the right expertise, it strikes me as a disqualifier and a filter. With all of the people in the community of Lee County, I'm sure if we try, we can find other people than just the ones that we are working with now to help with a committee for the school district. And not saying that we shouldn't have some of the existing people on there, but we have got to, it goes back to the conversation this morning, equity and inclusion. How far and wide are we looking that every time we have certain committees, the same names are on there? And no offense to any of them, they are all wonderful, they have the experience and the expertise, but at what point are you going to give an opportunity to someone else to gain that expertise?
So may I just add to what Ms. Gittens is saying? In my discussions with RSM and other school board attorneys who have been working with an audit committee, particularly with the audit committee, you want to take care to have somebody who has the background to be able to understand the audit and the process. So I will direct the board to Roman numeral 3A, organization of the committee. That's kind of what we're talking about right now in terms of who we want. If there's anybody else, we haven't discussed qualifications yet, but there is a sentence that does say that board members are to choose carefully and make sure that the individuals have the appropriate qualifications and background to succeed in the position, such as a certified public accountant or a certified internal auditor. My understanding for these types of, specifically an audit committee to succeed, you do need to have somebody with that financial background. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the same person from the finance committee. You may be able to find another CPA, but I wanted to make sure I brought that to the board's attention.
And let me say, that's all I'm saying is that there are thousands of CPAs and thousands of auditors in Lee County. And if we say we can't find any, then we need to look at our process in looking for them.
But if I may, we, just as we have all the other advisory committees, that behooves us to go out there when we are selecting people for that, for us to go out into the community and ask them to participate and get them in there. Even though we do that, we still tend to have very few that will participate, and we are out there. I know I can speak on myself. I'm out there trying to encourage people constantly to get on these advisory committees. So again, if you have a person that you have in mind, that would be one of your options for that seat.
And I think we need to all look at, like I said, going back to what we said this morning about putting the word equity in everything we do. There are minority CPAs, there are minority auditors, and when we look at our advisories now, they are not equitable and inclusive. So,
Well, okay.
So I would
in
just,
some, okay.
Ms. Morgan,
well, Ms. Jordan, if I may,
please.
again, there are certain policies that will be referenced in this audit committee policy. And one of them would be 1.20, which is the Community Involvement Opportunities Policy, which is the Board Advisory Committee policy. And in that policy, it does say that board members shall make every effort to reflect the racial and ethnic composition of the current Lee County community when possible. So that would be a given as part of this policy.
Ms. Morgan?
I think I've lost track of what I was going to say, but I guess I want to reiterate that I don't believe that somebody from Finance Advisory should be on the committee for the simple reason that these are two very different functions, and I don't want to see lines blurred. So that's my comment about finance.
Yeah,
And I'm just trying to get some clarification surrounding what is it that you're asking us. It sounds like we have agreed that we want a minimum of 7 people, none of which are board members, and now you're asking, do we want a member of finance and do we want a member of DAC? No, is that not what you're, I don't even know what you're asking.
So the question that was pending was whether or not there was a suggestion by Ms. Patrica that we have someone from DAC, finance, principals, or talc and spout as part of the committee. And then
That was not my suggestion. My suggestion was finance and DAC be members, voting members, and the others be
invited.
non-voting attendees who are invited.
Okay, so then.
Can I add to that?
Yes, go ahead.
We have an ISOP committee that only meets a couple times a year. Why can't we utilize 1 or 2 of them? And I think we should do some kind of a letter and invite our community to this and see who wants to step up. So, I mean, we could draft a letter from the board, and it could go to all the CPAs, the registered CPAs in Lee County, and minority CPAs, and really encourage them to serve. Thank you.
So I'm hearing the board's discussion, and I have a recommendation based on what I'm hearing in terms of your discussions. Everyone, these meetings will be public. There will be notice, and they are subject to sunshine. So anybody from the committee, anybody from another advisory committee is welcome to attend. What I'm hearing from the board, at least the majority of the board, is that they're not inclined to specifically invite somebody from another current advisory committee to sit on this audit committee. Can I see where we are in terms of a board, in terms of that proposition?
But that does not prohibit us from, as a individual board member, appointing somebody from another advisory committee who we feel or personally feel that have these qualifications to put their name in.
Okay, so let me get the first part first. Where is the board in terms of inviting members of DAC or inviting members of the Finance Committee to actually sit on this audit committee? If I can see thumbs.
Can you clarify that? Is
I
that
don't
sit
understand
meaning a voting member?
A voting member, as a member.
Yeah.
Again, but are we speaking about individuals from those committees?
Hold on one second. Formally invite, as a member of the Finance Committee or as a member of DAC representing those committees to come on this board to participate, and there'll be that free flow of information between DAC and Audit and Finance. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
That's not addressing your concern, which is whether or not, as a board member, can I just happen to appoint somebody who happens to be on the Finance Committee? Two different questions that I'm asking. So the first thing is, are you going to have somebody formally represent DAC or the Finance Committee on the Audit Committee? That is my question. If I can see thumbs. Ms.
I would
Fisher?
be for that.
I can live it either way. I was just raising it as a
Well,
potential.
if you do this, it's going to be counted as a yes.
Yes, agreed.
Ms. Fisher?
Oh, no, then, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm going with the board.
Ms. Jordan, where am I in the vote?
I'm sorry, to me,
So if you appoint somebody from the Finance Committee, you're not appointing them as a representative of the Finance Committee to sit on this Audit Committee. You're appointing them as a member of the public to sit on this Finance Committee, on the Audit Committee, and there just may happen to be a member of the Finance Committee, but
this would be
I'm not
over and
there
above
yet.
the 7 people.
No, this is still,
That's what she's asking. Do we want additional members to include a member of the Finance Committee? Do we want a separate seat for the Finance Committee, a separate seat for DAC?
Okay.
So that it would consist of how many?
9.
so
Okay. So
what's,
no one agrees with the ISOT, anyone from the ISOT committee?
I agree, my thumbs up.
I think we need to, with me, it's what Ms. Morgan said, blurred lines. I think we do not need to blur the lines, so I'm saying no.
right now, I just need to see where the board is on creating these additional seats, and we can include ISOC in there, DAC in there, and Finance Committee. Where are we?
Keep saying no.
Well, can I just say a little bit more? I don't think we should be excluding anyone. What if somebody wants to jump finance to be on this committee exclusively?
That's a different question. That's a different question.
Yeah,
So the other question now is, in my understanding, Madam Chair, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like that suggestion is not.
right,
Okay.
everyone, yes.
Okay.
No, we're not doing that.
The next question, the board members have an opportunity to appoint members to this audit committee. Is it okay to appoint somebody who happens to serve, for example, on the Finance Committee?
And keep in mind with that vote, that appointees would be just like our other advisory appointees, and it comes before the board for a vote, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but if they're taking consensus that those people are eliminated, that, I mean, we don't eliminate anyone to be on any other board. So how do we justify, Ms. Morgan?
I just don't think one person should serve on both committees. So I have no problem with somebody leaving finance and getting on this committee. I just don't want someone serving on both.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yeah, I have the same feeling, and the reason is that I think it does muddy the waters, and because specifically on finance, there may be some of these identical topics taken up, and finance, that whole group may have one view, and it will color the perception of the person that's now serving on the audit committee. I don't think we should be really concerned, oh, we'll never find anybody because we have, X number of CPAs on a particular committee. I think for this, we actually need to not rely on, let's put it on the website, but instead somebody said a letter or, pick up the phone and call somebody that you know. And it could also be, when we get to that point, there are attorneys that deal with finance. There's people that work in big business that deal with, so there's some other related occupations besides that would be good on this committee, I think, besides, we're not asking them to be doing a forensic audit. We're asking them to look carefully at some data and some issues and make a recommendation. So that's why I feel like we, and again, if they would rather be on this committee, then, they can.
Ms. Morgan?
And the other reason is if it becomes too small a circle of people if you have multiple people. I mean, one person sitting on multiple committees. I mean, the whole idea is to get as many people involved across the community as we can.
Yeah, 100%, I agree with you there. Ms. Mary?
So as I look at the proposed policy, the establishment and the purpose, it's about our board internal auditor and its independent audit and oversight functions, which is different from what finance advisory
Correct.
as advisory people who make recommendations regarding the budget. This is a whole different thing. I think it should be a strictly independent committee, representative of the community, to help us because they are our constituents. And so I don't think we should take from other committees and replicate things. And since it is a public meeting, anyone who is interested can come and hear it. But I think we should select the committee carefully.
Well, I guess my question would be also, is that right now, we have a policy that states that you cannot serve on more than one committee. And I will have to say, I did bring this, it was sent out to, we did speak about this at Finance Committee. And I did send this out to them so that they could see this. And they are definitely very much, when they were speaking, and I know Dr. Desenbar was there this past, they want to make sure that they have somebody from that committee, whether they're on, if they stick with finance or not, but they certainly want, I know at least one or two perhaps that would put their names in this pot to be chosen. And whether we choose them or not, that would be up to us as individuals. However, we have to make sure, because we do have many members that are on multiple advisory boards, and where are we setting that precedence, and are we going to ask them not to serve on more than one board? Because I thought we had this conversation a year ago or so that allowed them to sit on more than one board. Ms. Gittens.
Attorney DiPribruno, can you give an example, nothing that we're dealing with now, but just an example of something that would come before a board like this? In other words, we had this happen, and so the board needs to, what is an example of
Something that could be very simple is just a disagreement between the Finance Committee and the Audit Committee. I mean, there could be something proposed by the Finance Committee that the Audit Committee does not feel is appropriate, or upon review of what was suggested by the Finance Committee feels that it is inappropriate. I do understand Ms. Jordan's point. I don't think this precludes anyone from the Finance Committee to come and serve, so long as they're not serving on both committees, but I think you need to be careful with conflicts of interest and blurring the lines.
And that's
And each responsibility. Each committee has their function and responsibility.
And your example, to me, clarifies it completely, because if at one point there's a conflict between two committees, we cannot have people from those committees trying to resolve the conflict that involves them.
You have to be very careful to ensure that your audit committee is completely independent to fulfill its function appropriately for the board. So based on the conversations, I believe that here would be at least my recommendation in terms of the organization of the committee. The committee will have 7 seats appointed by board members. The superintendent, the chief financial officer, and the school board attorney or their designee will also serve, but not as a voting member of the committee. That individuals who serve on the committee will not be members of any other advisory committees, and that the board will ensure that these individuals have the appropriate background to serve on this committee. May I have a consensus on that recommendation?
So it passes. Ms. Giovanelli?
Yes, I actually would agree with that.
Okay.
So,
6-1. Good.
Thank you.
Ms. Vaughn?
I'd like to see whether the board is also in agreement that none of these members should be district employees, none of the voting members, because I see that as potentially a huge conflict of interest for people that are paid employees of the district.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. That was going to be my next question. A proposal was brought forth that members of this committee should be residents of Lee County, as well as not be employees of the district. May I have a consensus on that? Let me see where the board is.
Ms. Giovanelli?
yep, I agree with that completely.
Thank you. Carries.
May I add an additional layer of complication and difficulty? Can we be appointing vendors or frequent vendors? Doesn't that cloud independence?
Thank you very much, Ms. Patrica, for bringing that up. Again, there are some portions of Board Policy 1.20 which will be applicable to this audit committee, and one of those is having any type of financial gain or financial interest with the district. So it will have to be somebody that does not have any type of financial interest or cannot receive financial gain. That's one of the things from 1.20.
Refresh my recollection, please, on that policy. Does that bar someone from being on a committee, or are they just simply required to inform us of that potential conflict or step out of a vote in the event of a conflict? I forget that part of our policy.
Okay, let me review it really fast. So for the other advisory committees, the individual has to disclose that they are doing business with the district. My recommendation would to take it a step forward with regards to the audit committee and not have any type of financial interest with the district.
Can I just ask on that as well? And I don't know if you're coming to the application, so are we going to add to this a different application than we use for our current advisories?
Yeah, this application is going to have to be a little bit more detailed.
Okay.
So right now,
Would you please restate that, Ms. Dupree Bruno?
So there's 3 things. One is going to be the residency requirement, that the person actually live in Lee County, that the person is not an employee of the district, and that the person is not having any ventures that will afford them any type of financial gain, so not doing business with the district.
Is that, everybody in agreement on that? Ms. Giovanelli?
100%.
Thank you.
The other question I have for you is with regards to term. In Board Policy 1.20, the advisory committee members serve for 2 years. What is the board's pleasure? Do you want to keep it 2 years? You want to keep it longer? You want to keep it shorter?
I think 2 years, I'm thinking.
May I have a
What are you
consensus
thinking?
on 2 years? It looks like it's 2 years.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I sort of feel like 2 years is just not long enough. You basically get on the committee, you learn the ropes, you learn how the district operates, you learn what the issues are. You make one decision, and then potentially you could be replaced. I don't know, I sort of feel the same way with ISOC, actually. I guess I'd like to see at least 3 years, a 3-year term, if not 4, just for some continuity and stability.
I can live with 3.
Ms. Patrica?
ISOC is staggered.
Yeah.
We have 2s and 4s, but ultimately the 2s will become 4s.
That's right, thank you.
So I don't know if we want to do something like that to create the audit committee, have 4 of us do 4s and have 3 of us do 2s.
I would agree with that one.
Yeah.
Ms.
Or have
Spahn?
it go with our own term. If we do 4, in other words, when our term is up, they're like, does that make sense? In other words, the 3 of us that were elected in 18, our suggestions for that committee would have a 2-year term.
Yeah, and then they would have 4.
The ones that were just reelected in 2020, they would have.
So there'd be
let's say
4, it'd be 4-3. 4 with 2 and
Yeah, or
3 with
something.
4.
Yeah.
I actually think it should be the opposite, only because for continuity. Because remember, if we drop off and our people drop off, then we've got a whole new influx of board members and committee members, and the continuity of it, I think it should be the opposite way.
What do we think, ladies?
Let's put it to a vote both ways.
Okay, if we go, Ms. Fisher?
Well, considering the history of our advisory committees and the difficulty for people to make long-term commitments, what if we said something like a minimum of 2 years? I mean, I don't know, do you actually want to limit this kind of a committee? Because in not limiting it, it will happen naturally. Some people will leave the committee, others will want to stay, and there would be your continuity, which would be maybe more certain than the board, because we don't know every 2 years what the board composition will be.
The only thing is, though, if we do a minimum, we have no idea when that, so if they have taken their 2 years, could they go to the 3rd year then?
So may I make a suggestion? You have a minimum of 2 years with a maximum of 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
So let me see where the board is on that via consensus, please.
Just on that piece?
Yes, minimum of 2 years with a maximum of 4.
I think,
I don't understand.
I think we need to have,
Talking term limits?
Right.
No, we're not.
I think we're discussing terms, how long, and I believe there was a discussion whether or not we wanted to have 2 years and 4 years, and then there was a discussion, can we stagger it, and if we're staggering, how we're going to stagger it, and Ms. Fisher said, well, let's do a minimum of 2 years, And I know that the board was looking at a maximum of 4 years, which of course can be renewed if you want to at the end of the 4 years. So I just need direction from the board as to how you want to do it.
Okay.
I do it the way ISOC is.
Which is
Staggered, because that way, if the 2 years roll, if the 4 year rolls off, the next ones are moving on. So there's always someone there that knows what's going on.
That is correct. And everybody, after the first 2 years, everybody's serving a 4-year term.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
right, right,
Okay, so
with school board.
Kathleen, please restate that so we can get a,
So it's, the first class is 2 years and 4 years, but after the first 2 years, the appointments are for 4 years, and then, so you've got, everybody is 4 years, but it's staggered.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said it right, but.
and
So can I ask a
Anybody
question? Why?
agree with that?
So are you, let me just make sure I understand then. So the person, when we first started with the 2 year and the 4 year, the people that have 2 years, do they have the option to go on for the other 2? Or are they just done after 2 years?
They're done.
It's like when the school board went from 5 people to 7 that first year. District 6 was 2 years and District 7 was 4. But then after that, and it alternates for the at-large members. It's just for the
So
first year,
this is temporary, just for the first.
just for the first year. to
Then you
get-
still have people that are on there that
So
first 2
may I
years.
may I
that-
ask the question as to just so I understand the logic behind it? If the ultimate goal is to have 4-year terms, why are we doing 2 years?
That's what I don't understand.
To stagger it.
Just to stagger it for the first 2 years.
Exactly.
So can we see who agrees with that then? So we'll do a 4 and a 2 for the first year. Correct? Okay, so,
Each term will be, a certain number will be 2 years, certain number will be 4 years, and then after that, it will all be 4 years.
okay, so can we see who is agreeing on that one then?
We're talking about the way ISOC does it?
Yes. Ms. Giovanelli?
Well, ISOC has two different, one's a 2 year, one's a 3 year.
4.
4. But it doesn't change. Well, you're saying it's going to change and they're all going to be 4. ISOC is going to have those positions every 2 and 4 year positions. Always. So I don't think we're talking the same thing.
And the question I have about that, if that's how ISOC does it, they have 2 and 4 year terms, which, does it rotate with the board members as to who has 2 and 4 year appointees?
Yes, when they roll off, when whoever rolls off, then they come back to us. So if one of our people have rolled off, then they will let us know that they have rolled off and we can appoint somebody else.
No, I understand that, but then if I'm given a 2 year appointee as I'm sitting on the board, and my 2 year appointee finishes and they roll off, do I then have the option to put a 4 year appointee on there?
No.
Or do I continue to have a 2 year appointee and other people continue to have a 4 year appointee? Because that's not equitable.
Well, here's the question. This comes off regarding ISOC. I believe Carmen Salome has moved. So whatever is left of her term could be an open spot. So there's that issue.
Okay, so maybe we can go back to what Mary had said. You have to, okay, how about this? You have to, a minimum, no matter what, a minimum of 2 years is guaranteed, that they're going to serve, knowing that they can fulfill up to a 4 year term.
So what was just said about ISOC is inaccurate. The person who is appointed to a 2-year term serves that 2 years, and if they want to be reappointed, they can apply and be reappointed, but then their reappointment is for a 4-year period. The purpose is to stagger so that we don't have 7 people turning over at once.
Because then, because the 4-year would now be the 2-year and now the 4-year.
Correct.
So it like reverses.
No, and I understand that part, but the board members, we each then have an option that if my 2-year person that is dropping off says, I would like to go back on, but but there's somebody else that I may feel may be better to do it, then I can say, so sorry, we've got somebody else, so they've only done 2 years.
Correct. And the next one would be 4. Because you're not going to kick them off before they're finished their term.
No, I understand, but their term could either be 2 or 4 years, but anyway, okay.
It's my understanding, it's for continuity so that you always have somebody
and I
serving
get that. I'm fine with the rotating. I'm just concerned about the appointees in the beginning.
And not to cloud any waters or anything, but just to clarify.
Oh, just try it, just try.
To answer Ms. Giovanelli's concern, we do have 2 members that were appointed as non-voting members specifically for that purpose. So it's my understanding, I believe they're reaching out to one of them now to take her position since she's leaving.
I forgot about that. Thank you.
Yeah, that
right.
is correct. Alternates. Thank you for reminding us of that.
So may I have some board direction as to how to draft the term for each member of the committee? Is
Can we
it going to
just
be
say that
staggered,
it's the same
2
as I
years,
saw?
2 years with 4 years? Okay.
Yes. So can we get, is everybody in agreement with that? Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli?
Can you reiterate what we're doing now?
Just like ISAC, the 2 and 4.
Okay, yes, I would agree, because you don't want a whole new committee, so I get it. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
Isn't the 2 for just
Yes.
this first?
First go around.
Right, okay.
Okay. And
They're 4-year terms except for
This first,
this
yes.
first one. Got it.
Thank you.
And I will ask the board to just kind of think of, because this will come back to you, so we can solidify this a little bit more. But by that time, you can please tell me, how are you going to divvy up who's doing 2 years and who's doing 4 years? I don't need the answer right now, but please think about that for next time.
Thank you.
Could you repeat that? I'm
For
sorry.
next time, if the board can please direct me in terms of how you're going to divvy up who's nominating for 2 years and who's going to nominate for 4 years. Ms. Jordan?
Yes, I'm writing it down. Oh,
Isn't it simplest just to say, okay, Vaughn, you have 2 more years left. You nominate for 2. And then the next time in 2 years, if I'm reelected or whatever, I go for 4. I mean, isn't that the easiest? Have it go along with how much time the board member has to serve. And frankly, it's not like we're awarding them with the Nobel Prize. I mean, let's get real. It is what it is. I mean, I'm happy if somebody else has 2 years left. I'm happy to take a 2-year thing.
Ms. Gittens.
My point in that is for continuity, that in 2 years, if we are not here, someone comes in new, and one of the first things they have to do is to appoint someone to this committee. They have to first get up to speed as to what is going on. They've got to find someone, that whole process. If a person gets on this board or sits on this board and has their first 2 years, they've already got somebody. By 2 years, they're ready and know and understand the gravity of placing someone in that position. That's No, and it's not the Nobel Prize, and it's not, my person is representing me. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about continuity of thought.
So should we just go ahead and see consensus on who would agree upon whoever was elected in, okay, District 1, 4, 5, I'm sorry, District 2? You're 1, right?
1.
District 1, 4, 5, and 6. If we would pick the 2-year, District 2, I'm trying to do my math here, 3 and 7, would then pick the 4-year ones. Do we have agreement on that? Ms. Giovanelli? Ms. Giovanelli?
I'm okay with either way. I mean, because I'm here for 4 years. So
Yeah, but I need you to
pick
tell
one
me yes or no, please.
Well, can I hear what everybody else wants? Because
Okay,
I'll agree with the
right now it is,
the board.
it's 5-1 right at the moment. So you can join either one.
It doesn't matter.
Which one would you like?
I can live with it.
Thank you.
How's that? That's a yes.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Bruno?
Thank you. And is this committee going to have a quorum, and what do you want for the quorum?
I'm sorry, say again?
Do you want this committee to have a quorum, and what number do you want for the quorum?
4 of 7. I propose 4 of 7.
Is everybody okay with 4? A minimum of 4 for a quorum? Ms. Morgan?
All right.
Yes.
Ms. Giovanelli, thank you. 4.
Yes.
Do you want to set times for when this committee is going to meet, monthly? Do you want it to just follow 1.20, which has the meeting, I believe, September through May, with the exception of December?
Well,
And that depends on
again, it
their
depends on what we're
need.
doing. Ms. Morgan?
I agree. It really depends on what they're being asked to do, and I don't think they need to meet monthly unless we give them some enormous charter.
Bi-monthly?
Do you want to have a minimum that they meet at least quarterly?
Yes.
Yes.
Does everybody agree with at least quarterly?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Giovanelli?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Aside from a chair and a vice chair, do you want any other officer positions for this committee? Perhaps the secretary?
Well, would they have a liaison just like the other ones to keep the minutes? We would have to have some type of, because I think by law, we have to have minutes of those meetings, so we need to have
They can have somebody designated on that committee to serve as the secretary to
Correct.
record the minutes. So you want a chair, vice chair, and a secretary?
Well, there's only 7 people. Everybody's got to have a position.
Do we have to have a liaison from the district to keep those minutes? Because we have to keep them to put in public records.
They just need to make sure that they have, I mean, we can have, if the board chooses to have a staff liaison to record the minutes, you can, or you can have somebody designated from the committee to record the minutes and make sure that the appropriate official gets the minutes. It's probably best to have somebody from staff do it so you can hold them accountable, but that's to the board's discretion.
Does anyone have, I mean, I personally believe that we need to have staff to maintain those records for us. Ms. Giovanelli, I'm sorry,
I
Ms.
was going to
Vaughn?
make another comment. Also, we need staff because now and then there's the issue that somebody wants something sent out to the other members, and they, like with us, they operate under sunshine, so you would need someone, and I think you definitely need, like the advisory, you need somebody in staff to support, like running off paperwork or posting things and all of that. And I would think we should have a board liaison and staff liaison and a secretary from staff. I would do it just like we do for the other advisory committees.
So may I have a consensus on that recommendation?
We have a consensus.
So what I would ask the board to do, please, is to review the duties and responsibilities. That is section 5, as well as the purpose and the authority. So section 2, section 4, and section 5. If you could please review that and individually provide me with your feedback and comments, I would appreciate that, and then I will provide you with another draft.
Okay, and then can I also add on that too, to we are looking at this, make sure the Florida statute 218.391 tells us that's the guideline to what we have to have in this committee. So I think we need to make sure that we're adhering to that.
And basically, that statute just requires that you have a committee to make the recommendation to select your internal auditor. That's one of the main functions of this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, board. This gives me good feedback so I can go back and revise. And again, I'll wait for, some more information in terms of responsibilities and the purpose. Number 2, number 5, and authority, number 4. Thank you very much.
And I just want to reiterate that this has been sent out to the Finance Committee, because I know a lot of times when we are doing things, we ask if we've sent this out to the committee, so this has been sent out to them to get some feedback as well.
I do want to just clarify one thing based on the discussion today. We have 7 seats with the CFO, SB, the school board attorney, and the superintendent or their designee being non-voting members. I want some clarification. Is the board intending to have a board liaison as well? One board liaison?
I thought we had already decided on that and voted on it.
I just want to make sure, because when I said it before, I did not include that, so I just want to make sure.
But by statute, we have to have one.
Okay.
So, yes, we have to by law.
So may I ask, are we changing our previous discussion? And because I was selected to be that liaison, are you changing that at this point?
I don't think, that's not what I'm not there yet. I'm just trying to make sure that I get clear guidance from the board, and I'm going to just double check something with regards to the statute, but I just want to make sure that I got clear guidance from the board. That's all I needed for right now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are moving on and to agenda review, and Dr. Atkins, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. We will start with the first questions that we have on our agenda review for today. The first one comes from the consent academic services agenda, item G12. And the item was pulled prior to the meeting, and that was approval of the Academic Affiliation Agreement Association with Eye Care of Florida. And the reason it was pulled, it was actually just a duplicate item.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Yes, you're correct, Dr. Atkins. That was just a duplicate agenda item. It was still there, so it was just pulled. So Lisa Wright and myself and Jen Schaefer worked on that last week.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Giovanelli, that was your question. You understand that?
Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item is H, consent item agenda for business services, approval of monthly budget report for the period ending December 31st, 2020. The question is Lehigh Senior Edition, and then the numbers that were there. Kurt's going to respond for us.
Board, Scott Rickenbacker, Director of Construction. The question in regards to the Lehigh Senior Edition, the job is complete. It has been audited. The actual audit amount The audit came in with a final adjusted GMP price of $9,286,873. The auditor found $31,081 that was returned back to the district that was not due to the contractor. So we received a credit change order. The final value after accepting that deduct change order was $9,255,792. Had the accountant break out the numbers. I can't speak for the FF&E portion in the total project cost that you folks had approved. And that total project cost on December 11th of 2018 was $13,086,808.40. On that amount, construction within the project, less the FF&E, brought back $1,076,185.26.
Okay, Ms. Gittens, that was your question. Did you have?
Yeah, I think the other ones under it will help to answer my questions. My understanding is that each project has a project code number so that we can kind of follow it and trace it along if we're looking for it in documents or in the budget or whatever. So and the project codes that I see are just kind of generic, like 7400, and not specific to a particular project. Does this one have a particular project that if I wanted to look back in the other budgets, I could
Absolutely.
see?
Everything I do has a specific project line code item that refers to this project, each individual project I do. There may be several lines and codes involved in a project, but they have their own codes and lines.
And that's when I have, and it'll come up later when I ask about the timelines and all, having specific project numbers to follow things makes it a lot easier.
Sure.
And also, relative to the timeline question, I noticed Ms. Eballs came up, and I don't know if you're going to respond now or wait until that question.
Because I believe it's the second, it's next, so I was just waiting for it.
And I have, we need project codes for each item and a timeline, so.
Okay. Before they begin, can I ask a question? Tomorrow in the briefing, are you guys giving an update or whatever at that point? And some of the questions will probably be the same. So I noticed that it's 2 o'clock and we have a 3:30 hard stop. So if some of these things may come up tomorrow in the briefing, for sake of time, we can, do that as well. It's up to you all.
Good afternoon, Kathy Ebaugh, Executive Director of Facility Planning and Development. Ms. Gittens, I appreciate the awareness of the hard stop and the timeliness. We were not prepared to answer these questions as per part of tomorrow's capital update, although we do have a capital update, and we certainly could adjust our presentation to make sure that these questions are answered at that time, if that's your preference.
I mean, I will ask the rest of the board, Madam Chair.
I mean, you're prepared now, too, as well.
Yeah, we're prepared to answer them now. We're prepared to answer them tomorrow, however, whatever is your preference.
Well, if you're going to be discussing this tomorrow, that would save you time today, and we'll just listen to what your comments are tomorrow. Is that okay with everyone?
What she was saying is that that wasn't part of what was going to be included in tomorrow's update.
But
so,
you're prepared now.
But prepared to answer them whenever
If you're here
the
to
board would
answer
like.
that, Ms. Ebaugh, go ahead and just.
Yes, please.
So, in response to the timeline question, we provided a fairly detailed timeline for each project that's identified in the capital improvement plan as part of Friday's board update. As indicated, the high schools take about 18 months, middle schools take about 14 months, elementary schools take about 13 months, and pre-K to 8 schools take about 17 months for construction. That includes both phase 1 and phase 2 design and then construction. If you want me to be specific about those projects in the capital improvement plan, I'm happy to bring them up now, or as I mentioned, Ms. Gittens, we certainly could update you about this. We can adjust tomorrow's presentation and make sure that this information is included tomorrow. It's your preference.
Okay, and just to be clear, when I say a timeline, all I'm asking for is when you walk into your office in the morning and turn on the light and get started working, how do you know where you're going to start, which project is what, in what process? And we have seen that previously on just a one sheet. And I wasn't asking how long it takes to do a high school or an elementary school. I'm asking specifically to be able to follow along with projects that are being done. And I have mentioned before that my issue is that we will be presented a project and then suddenly it's all the way over here to this part of it, and we don't know what happened or who made the decision or what happened in between. And if we had some type of timeline that says this will happen here, we'll present this here, this paperwork has to go up or whatever. It doesn't have to be detailed. I don't want to be a planning director. I just want to be able to say to a constituent that asks me a question that has expertise in the area, well, what's happening here? And I have no idea, or what happened here. So that's all I'm asking for, is just something simple that says we're here, we're going to do this. The same thing that you would look at when you come in the morning, say, well, today we've got to do this.
Ms. Gittens, we talked about this last week, and as we discussed going forward, it's not in this capital plan for update tomorrow, but going forward, we will make sure that there is a one-pager in all of our capital updates every month so that you can see what projects are where, what phase they're in, and you can be able to provide the information that you're being asked on a timely matter.
And then in the meantime, I think, as you probably saw in the board update, you do have for the kind of all those current projects in all the schools, you do have a lot of that broken out in terms of like when's the design phase, the construction phase, procurement, et cetera. So
we have some of it, and I can talk offline about some that's not there. And tomorrow when you bring that up, I'll bring up my questions.
Okay.
Okay.
But if you would, though, Ms. Gittens, if there is a specific question that Ms. Ebal is going to have an answer to, if you would send that in advance, so at least she could be prepared to answer whatever question you may have for her. I want to make sure that they have
we would
the
appreciate it. I
opportunity
mean,
to.
it's like this morning, we got those questions Sunday, and that's why operations wasn't here in the morning, because they were working on responding to that question.
And I understand this is several times I've been told, well, we don't have time to look up the answers to your questions. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying, I feel that the questions that I'm asking are just simple, basic questions about, where are we with this? And having that information would preclude some of the questions that I have. And not to be rude, but I was looking back at some minutes from January of 2020, and I asked for a timeline. Some of the things that I have asked for just kind of go by the wayside, and it's like maybe I'll forget about it. And like I said, I'm not trying to cause any issues, but to have information to be able to do our job in the community is necessary. And I don't think that I ask things that are just frivolous and unnecessary.
Well, and as
Gittens, I can tell you, we endeavor to provide you all the information that you've requested, and if there's anything specific, I'd be happy to, if you could send us that, we would be happy to respond. It is never our intention to put things by the wayside. I do think sometimes there's misunderstandings about questions you've been asked, or where we feel we've provided information, and you later tell us that it's not meeting your expectations. So, but again, we endeavor to try to provide this board with the information that the board requests.
And if I may, Ms. Ebal just said that they had that conversation, so they will be sending out an update, and thank you very much for doing that. I'm sure we all appreciate that. And then if there is specifics that Ms. Gittens needs to know or would like to know, then I would suggest to please forward that to them so that way she can answer back. And then if that doesn't come to you, then bring it back up here. Thank you. Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Board. All right, that takes us to the next one. Let's see. Which projects are only financed with sales tax? Which projects include building construction, school-based sales tax projects, and then the numbers. So that response.
Basically, the question on that is, when it states school-based tax projects on the list, I have no idea what that is specifically. And again, this can be answered with a list or whatever of those projects and project codes.
Good afternoon, Dr. Atkins and members of the board. So the question about the school-based tax projects and what that includes, we do have, as part of that, the reporting that's on the website. So every individual project that's funded inside of sales tax is going to be listed on that website. In addition, we have, in summary, it's not going to be location by location, but in summary, the quarterly report that we provide for ISOC and that we make available to the public will have all of the projects listed, like I said, in summary, not by location, inside of the 4 different categories that we talk about what we budget for sales tax, which is inside of safety, maintenance, technology, and construction. So in summary, those will be listed on that quarterly report. If there is a different report as far as this budget monthly report that the board desires, we can talk about what that would look like and how you would want that to be. But between all of these different funding sources, that is the detail behind every single specific project that's funded in sales tax and in what locations.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question, again, this is coming to us. I think operations is going to respond. Please update on fogging. Ms. Ebal.
Good afternoon once again. To update on the fogging responsibility for buses and transportation have already been transferred from the maintenance department to the transportation department as of January 21st. The transportation department has been supplied the training and the materials they need to fog their facilities as necessary to respond to COVID-19. In February, the responsibilities for district and school facilities will be transferred to the building supervisors and head custodians. Training for the building supervisors and the head custodians is scheduled for February 11th, with the fogging responsibilities to transfer on the following day, February 12th. The maintenance department will continue to provide support and backup for all fogging activities as necessary.
And simplistically, it's that I knew we had a lot of fogging materials, and my question is basically what is being done with those, how often, and that type of.
So we we use our fogging materials as necessary to respond to any COVID-19 activity. We are responsive to CDC guidelines, and that means that we fog any sites within a 48-hour period if we have been notified of such. So if we get a notification and within the 48-hour period, we make sure that that site is fogged. If, as we just discussed, if it's at a transportation site, they are doing it on site for themselves now. Starting next month, we'll move it to also district and school facilities.
So any school, any room or whatever that is quarantined, class that's quarantined, you follow up with a fogging?
Within the 48-hour time period, yes, we do.
Thank you.
Ms. Morgan?
I'm going to ask the indulgence of my colleagues. I think that the purpose of this particular session is to discuss what's on the agenda, and it should not be used to discuss matters that are not on the agenda, particularly given the time limits that we have.
Heard. Thank you.
And may I please respond to that?
Please.
On several occasions, almost at each meeting, at some point, I'm told to either hurry up, or is it going to take a long time to ask your question? And my question to the rest of the board is, when do we get answers to these questions in a public forum that we need? I get the feeling it's like, stop asking so many questions, but these are questions that I am asked and that people in, my constituency and across the district have asked and have talked about. So and it comes back to limiting our time to do our work. If this is our work to understand what's going on in the district, when do we do that? And limiting it to 2 hours is just not acceptable to me. And I honestly, and I mentioned this before, I think that we should have our workshops start off in the morning so we can have time that if it runs over and we have 30 minutes lunch, we have 30 minutes lunch, but the questions have been answered.
Ms. Morgan, you had your hand up?
No more comments.
I'm just going to thank you both for your response, but I think that we need to make sure that we get this stuff a week in advance. If we do our due diligence and read over everything, we have the opportunity to send these questions out well in advance to get a respond, so that respond can satisfy whatever our needs are or our questions are, so that way we can share that with our constituents, the ones who are calling us and asking that.
But then it's not in the sunshine. It's that I will get an email with an answer.
Well, it's in the sunshine because they're having direct contact with you, not with all of us, so we're not in any type of violation.
But then that is limiting my responsibility as an elected official to bring forward to the body questions that they have. So you're saying you're still limiting. That's okay.
I'm not trying to limit you. I'm just saying if we, not you, if we as a board could get, make sure that we get our questions that we may have out to them in advance, so that way, because they're not just waiting for our questions, they're doing a job, so that way they have ample time to, get back to all of us, so that when we do come here, our questions can be answered rather quickly, and then we already have in our mind what that answer is, so it's easier for us to digest what they're saying. That's all I'm saying. And Ms. Fisher, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say, I was going to say point of order, but I'm just going to say that we get our agenda on the previous Tuesday. If we get our questions in soon enough so that staff has ample time to work on the answers, we can't expect to send our questions in on a Sunday and have the answers on Monday morning.
May I ask, is the question about doing this the fact that that staff need more time to answer the questions? Is that what the issue is? Or is it the number of questions or the time that it's taking to answer them?
I think it's a matter of timeliness, and at this point, because we have a time certain to end today, I think we do need to move forward and give them an opportunity to give us the information they have and not discuss the process that we need to go through at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Dr. Atkins?
All right, then with the board's help, I just want to go through some of these and make sure that I'm answering the ones I need to be. Otherwise, we'll be providing responses to those non-agenda, or those non-agenda items at a different time.
Okay, may I please?
Please, Ms. Gittens.
Okay, at this point, since it seems as we have heard, no one has an appetite to hear an answer to any of these questions, they are all relevant to the agenda that I have to vote on along with everyone else tomorrow. But if you feel that it is not, you can forego, and I will tell you which questions to just forego this part and move on.
And Ms. Gittens, if I may, no one is suggesting that you do not have your questions answered. I just want
No,
to.
but I'm just saying,
clear with
for
that.
the sake of time, we will deal with it later. You
Okay.
can move on to H2.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli, did you have a question or a comment?
Well, I do because my questions are also similar, look similar when I'm reading through here. And this is to have a speedy meeting on Tuesday is why we're doing this. So I think we're forgetting why we're doing this and getting our answers. So, I mean, this is about transparency and being in the sunshine and so I think we're missing the point of why we're doing this to begin with. All my questions are regarding the agenda.
When Dr. Atkins, thank you, Ms. Giovanelli. So when he reads the question, the answers are being given. That is what you're asking for. You're asking for the answers to the questions. So as long as that's what you're getting, and then if you need something deeper than what the answer is, then maybe that's when you can have a conversation offline to have more clarity of what your question might be. Does that work?
Kind of, but I mean, honestly, if I get answers by tomorrow before this meeting, I'll be fine. So some of this, maybe my questions might need a little more information that they'll have to provide to me tomorrow. And that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanelli.
Well, if we have questions that need to be, I want to be able to respond to questions so that we can have a successful board meeting tomorrow. Staff is here. I don't mind answering questions at all. And so let's just go through what I have.
Please.
And I'm going to assume that these are agenda related in some way, shape, or form. So let's see, the next one I have is related to COVID equipment. And we have a response from Business Services and Kathy Ebal related to the equipment that is used. So if you want to do that one, and the cost of that equipment. And this is again related to the fogging question from earlier.
So related specifically to the equipment that is purchased by maintenance for COVID, in relationship to the previous question, maintenance has obtained the following: BioEsk botanical disinfectant, which it uses at all school levels, which costs $244,390. Foggers for the transportation department, which cost $1,759. Foggers for district and school facilities, which cost $25,649, and goggles for district and school facilities, which cost $337. Additional facilities are available through the district warehouse on an as-needed basis.
There are other things that just so you know, we are, I was out at Gateway High School and you know, they did do some updating to some of those facilities like others for COVID purposes or in COVID response. So the touchless water fountains, that was a change that they made in response, and that's also under COVID equipment. Counter shields and other miscellaneous equipment at schools. The next question it relates to the large number of portables that will expire 2023. Dominic will come up and respond to that question. Again, that's back to our trying to get these portables out of our inventory, which will allow us to build to our timeline. So as these go beyond their life expectancy, so to speak, we can take them off of our inventory and therefore take advantage of the aggressive timeline we need to be able to build a permanent facility instead of having portables.
Good afternoon, board members. Dr. Atkins. The expiration of portables at 20 years doesn't mean necessarily that they expire. However, that we do have the ability to take them off of our inventory and will no longer count against the district as capacity. So that being said, at the next year five-year plan survey, we have the opportunity to take those portables off and give us the opportunity to replace those with permanent student stations. Now, those portables, though expired, are still available to the district to be used anywhere in the district as non-capacity carrying capacity, for lack of a better word.
And I'll go on to the next one if that's okay with the board. We do have, for the Riverdale project, we do have that piece of property that's being purchased. So when will the Riverdale project be discussed with the community before property is purchased? Question mark.
The property purchase that we are doing is necessary in order to accomplish the remodel and renovation for the campus, and the exact use of that property will be included as part of the Phase 1 design evaluation of the campus, and it provides us much-needed additional land facility. That's a very small campus with very tight, and we're trying to, as you know, we would like to take the current portables off that campus and put them into permanent capacity, as in a new building. We have some other things that we want to accomplish, including a new gymnasium, so that additional piece of land will help us, and exactly how it's going to be used, it will come through the design process. In terms of when we will be engaging with the community.
One other thing I want to add that you may or may not be aware of, there is a plaza on the eastern side, or to the east of that piece of property on the other side of Buckingham Road that had a number of businesses that were not being used. So students would often use that as parking. We now have, we know that Publix is going to be putting in a new store there right across the street, so you're probably going to have a higher utilization of that particular piece of property by the public, and therefore it's not going to be as available to others that are in the school. You know, so parking is something that has always been a concern on the Riverdale campus. It is a very tight campus, and so this would be another thing that we potentially could look at as we're doing this redesign.
When we were doing the evaluations through the scoping process, we recently hired identified who we're in negotiations with for the contract, the construction manager, and for the design. And both the construction manager and the architect applicants talked about various uses of that piece of land, much of them dealing with transportation and stormwater, which are important because then that frees up additional land for the campus that is currently being used in those ways. So that small piece of land may look small, but it's really valuable to this project and the success of this project. In terms of, Dr. Atkins, do you want me to proceed with it?
Go ahead.
In terms of the community engagement phase of it, we recently met with the principal, Scott Cook, to discuss how to do community engagement and what he saw as community engagement for the campus. Considering, as I mentioned, we are in the negotiation phase of working to identify and secure the architect and the CM, he would like us to wait until that happens, which we expect to be in the early mid-spring timeframe. In the meantime, he is going to update his campus and in his community about the project and set the stage for what will be this new project. We also talked about various items that we will do as part of the community engagement effort, including we will be having an online forum where people can ask us questions about the project and we can respond in an on-timely manner. We will also have a website similar to the one that's used for Gateway and other projects that keep people abreast of what's going on, what the phasing of the project is, and awareness of where we are with the project. And then we will finally do in-person and virtual project workshops that allow the community, both the school community and the community as a whole, because we understand how important this community is, not only to the students and the families who go there, but to the overall community of that area. To talk to us about what they would like to see. As we said, there's a lot of things we're looking on this campus. We're talking about upgrading their STEM project. We're talking about their gym. We're talking about their portables and moving into a permanent capacity. We're talking about upgrading their athletic facilities. We're talking about upgrading their cafeteria space and increasing the safety and security through single point of entry and a new administration offices. Pretty much everything on that campus is going to be looked at and evaluated in order to bring it to the needs of it today. And we know that that involves the community, so we will be doing an extensive effort once we hire the design team, which we expect to be in the spring.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
I just, for a moment, wanted to go back to something Dr. Atkins said 2 bullets ago. So if I were to make the statement about the fogging, that now we have it completely in-house, that would be an accurate statement?
We will continue to use outside consultants and outside vendors as necessary, but I think it's accurate to say that we have moved to prioritizing in-house versus out-of-house, but there will be always time, there may be times in the future based on need and demand and capacity that we would use outside vendors. So I wouldn't want to say it's 100%.
Okay, but by and large, for most of the situations
yes,
that have arisen, and I am very glad to hear that, because I think it's a definite cost savings.
Well, and we think it's a more timely, and people can take care of our own. We can take care of our own, so we think it's a good move up for a lot of reasons.
Take care of our own, and if we save bucks, that's a good thing too. So I just wanted to make sure that I was hearing correctly.
You are hearing correctly.
Okay.
All right, and I believe H2, approval of the budget amendment dated December 31st, 2020.
Dr. Atkins.
I didn't hear her, I'm sorry.
I said you can skip it if you like. You can move on to 2.
All right, the next one is, please explain the following: 2,400 facilities acquisition and construction, and then these 600 capital outlay, 700 other expenses, total function 7,400, and I believe that's Dr. Desimores.
Good afternoon again. If I understood the question correctly, it was asking to explain what those codes and numbers meant. So in that particular line item, it reflects the total budget in that specified fund, which on this particular line, that was from the general funds that were budgeted at the time in those object code series. And the 600 object code series reflects everything that's budgeted in at that point in those funds capital outlay, and then anything that's in the 700 series, which reflects other expenses, which could be a lot of things, but things like dues, fees, memberships, and just other miscellaneous type expenses that don't have any other specific description for any other object code. So I'm not sure if I answered that question, but was there something specifically that you were looking for a detailed breakdown, which would be many, many different lines, because remember, this is the summarization of every budget at every school, every location inside of those particular functions and objects. Just looking to make sure I answered the question comprehensively.
Ms. Gittens?
I'm not sure whose question
It was not mine.
That wasn't yours?
No, it was not.
Oh, I thought it was yours. It looked like it carried
Let me
over.
follow up with another one, and maybe this would help. Says, for both budgets and for transparency for the community, please explain line item changes and/or why the need for the increases. Please give details of the additional cost for the increases. Please explain what is this also. Local sources, grants and bequests, miscellaneous local sources. I would like details of this miscellaneous, miscellaneous items.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if I completely understood the first question. As I said, please give details of the additional costs of the increases, but from how I'm reading that or understanding it, there may not be any additional costs associated. So basically, the budget is amended and updated every day by all locations for various reasons, moving funds from one line to another, one function to another, one object to another, in order to accurately reflect in the budget where they want their money so they can expend it appropriately. Or revenues added to the budget when it's received, and then when this happens, expense budgets are increased where we need them to reflect where these revenues are budgeted. So it's always balanced, right? There's an in and an out everywhere. So I'm just looking again to make sure that I answered the question, or at least the essence of that question.
Giovanelli, that was your question, I believe?
Well, I was just curious. I have a hard time approving anything that's miscellaneous items. So I would just like why isn't it detailed?
Okay, so I think that speaks then to number 2, or the second part of the question about what's inside of either local sources or the miscellaneous local sources. So items budgeted under the local sources, which is gifts, grants, and bequests in the 440 that you were asking, can be a multitude of things, but mostly donations that we received from non-governmental types of organizations such as the Suncoast Credit Union, or donations from individuals. And then miscellaneous local sources, again, can also be various different things. I mean, it really is kind of the catch-all category for anything that doesn't have a specific object code as defined by the Red Book, or as defined by how the state says we have to categorize things. But the large part of things in miscellaneous local sources include things like our E-rate money, like money that comes through our Dory Schlossberg funds, or funds from athletic events, etc. So it truly is a miscellaneous pot based on revenues that may be collected both at the district level and by individual schools as well.
Okay, so my concern is why the increase in 30 days? What was the increase in miscellaneous items in 30 days? So what is that left? It shouldn't be a lot. Why can't it be detailed?
Could you, maybe somebody else heard that, I didn't.
Ms. Giovanelli, could you please repeat that question? You said that you want something detailed?
Okay, why did the capital increase expenses in 30 days? What was the 30-day increase?
Okay, it's me in my hearing. She says, why did something increase in 30 days?
The capital outlay increase in 30 days. Is that what you just said?
No, why did the capital budget increase?
Why did the capital budget?
It's only a 30-day time frame.
Okay, all right. So I understand.
And then I guess I need the definition of what the state's definition, explanation of miscellaneous items.
Okay. Well, the state doesn't have a definition of such, but we have a definition of such and the things that fall underneath that. So we're happy to provide the detail behind all of the different changes that went into the summarization of this. So we can provide that.
Okay.
We could also provide, I mean, and maybe possibly the link to the Red Book, the state Red Book, and that's kind of a nice reference. If you know, that where it really kind of breaks down a lot of these funds and object codes and gives you a little bit more of the state's explanation there, and then she can do what's beyond that. And that's something that's available for the public.
Ms. Gittens?
And that would be helpful, but I mean, I do, after attending the finance training and all of that, I do have those codes. The issue that I have is breaking it down into what that means here locally. So I put down there perhaps some document or some conversation to tell us, if you're looking for this, you can find it here, and here's where we have this, and just something simplistic like that, and then we, I would have less questions.
Okay, so, and maybe a conversation for another day, but it could be that depending on what you're looking for, so this information is a summary. So as we talked about with the 100 different locations and the budgets that get amended each day by every single department and location, really, this is the summary of all of the items that happen inside of that. So depending on what you're looking for, right, if you're looking for something to happen, you're looking for a specific project. You were asking earlier about the construction project. So if you want to find out, oh, hey, how much is budgeted in a specific project, you will not find that here because that is not the breakdown that this is giving, right? This is only given a breakdown by function and object and fund. So depending on the information, it seems like maybe there's a different piece of information that is being desired rather than what's here. So I think maybe the next conversation is to determine what is that, and how can we best provide for that. And just my observation is what it sounds like to me.
Thank you. Dr. Atkins?
Okay, are we okay to move on then? Any other questions about that particular item?
Okay, well,
Ms. Giovanelli?
there was an increase of like 800,000, and I was just trying to figure out what that increase was.
Could you give a little bit more detail about where you're looking and where do you see that?
Let me see which item.
I think it's within the budget amendment itself.
Yes, I think so.
Because you have 113020 and then 123120, and the amount of the change, I think.
Understood, but inside of that, it's also broken out by funds, by functions, and by objects. So when you say you see an increase of 800,000, where exactly are you looking? Which fund, which function, and which objects I can follow you?
What page are you on, Ms. Giovanelli?
I'm trying to find my page now, but I don't know if it's in which attachment. That was done yesterday, so let's see what it was.
It's looks to me like if it's capital outlay 684, non-cap remodeling and renovation, there's a negative of 815,000.
Oh, yeah, there was one there.
Yep, I see that. That's a reduction, though, not an increase. She referenced an
No,
increase.
there was one for like 896 or something like, and I gotta find it, and I might be in the wrong attachment now. Hold on, because there was two.
Look at the question.
I can't find that either, Ms. Giovanelli. 890 something?
Well, let's see, she does, she's listed like local sources, 440, grants and bequeaths.
And
I don't
those
know
are
if
revenues.
there's one school-based tax project, and there's an 898,306. I think that's why I was trying to figure out. And there was another section I read miscellaneous. That's what, and I quoted what was in there. So let me find that page.
Okay, so I'm looking at the second attachment, which is the capital projects monthly review, and I do see under the line item maintenance projects, I see a reduction in budget of 895,581. That's a reduction. Is that where you are referring to?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I quoted the miscellaneous. Let me see, where did I quote that miscellaneous? I gotta find that attachment. Next time I'll make sure that's there.
Miscellaneous is the first page, 1 of 13.
Yeah, you did ask about miscellaneous local sources, which is a revenue, which is money coming in, and that did increase by $62,000 this year. So, I mean, this month, this period.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it was that number you were referring to, right?
No, she said 89.
All right, well, let's move on, and I'll come back to it because I got to find it now. And I'll
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
All right, so the next question is approval to remove items from the official property record. Question is, what happens to these items?
And so for the items, it really depends on what they are and what condition they're in. We do try to auction or sell most of our excess or surplus equipment. And you've heard a little bit about that, especially with the technology items that we have. Some of them are disposed of if they're not working or, whatever the case may be. But we do try to the extent that we can to make sure that we are trying to offer those items out to the public and sell them to be able to get whatever value we can out of them.
And then also, can you clarify there's the two items that are on there that says obsolete, the tractor and the lawnmower?
I can do that,
Thank
I believe. There's one is a SCAG mower, which is at Dunbar High School, and contacted the school, and what basically that is too expensive to repair, is what the principal has told us. And then, so that's one item. So we're probably going to end up changing that to beyond repair. And then the second item is it's a zero-turn mower at I think it's at Three Oaks Middle School, and same thing, where you have something that's too expensive to repair, so that will probably be changed for the upcoming board meeting, just so you know. But that's an update on those two items. I don't know if you had anything else to add to that. It's just Jen did some research for me.
I just thought that was strange that it was obsolete versus beyond repair.
It does depend on the age of the item as well. So if you have an item that really is quite old, many times we will call it obsolete. But we were just having that conversation before this about, okay, well, having a more defined definition of what is considered obsolete versus beyond economic repair, and then sharing that with you, and then, we can follow those, those guidelines that we set forth and agree to.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was for the community, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Atkins?
All right. I believe the next item that I have is Human Resources, approval of personnel recommendations. The first one is related to an assistant principal opening at, I believe it's Lehigh Senior High School, or Estero High School. So Dr. Pruitt's going to respond for us.
Yeah, it's an open position, open assistant principal position at Estero High School due to the resignation of Heather Morris.
Okay.
Ms. Giovanelli?
Thank you.
You heard that? Thank you.
All right, next one is, I believe, an operations item, approval of the Safety and Security of School Buildings Grant Amendment 3. The question is, can you explain what is happening here? And Dr. Desamores, I think, is going to respond to that one for us. Sorry, Dr.
What is it, your
Desamores.
exercise? Get your steps.
And then Mr. Giovanelli is going to,
Yes.
Gemelli is going to respond to the next one, so just putting him on the queue.
Okay, all right, long time no see, yes. So with the Safety and Security Grant, this Amendment 3, so we had projects originally in the grant related to our red locks, the cellular amplification and perimeter fencing, and surveillance systems as well. Basically, what we're doing is because some of the projects that were originally budgeted within this, within the security grant were completed, and all dollars that were originally budgeted for those not yet expended, we're taking them and reallocating them to a new project in surveillance systems so that we can go ahead and utilize all of the money that we were originally given in the grant. And in the attachment to the board agenda, the project amendment request, you'll see there in the narrative on the bottom, the very bottom of the page, that it talks about all of the remaining dollars from those projects and where we're reallocating to secure surveillance systems and at which school in order to appropriately spend out all of the grant dollars that we received.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli?
Thank you.
Dr. Atkins?
I think I'm trying to track down her
Can
question.
Ms. Gittens?
I make a comment, Dr. Atkins? K2 and K3 were both mine, and they're both very similar, and just require that you follow up with some information, if at all possible. And I've listed it there, and I've already discussed it, so it's not necessary to go into detail.
So K2 is approval to pursue the purchase of up to 173 acres located at 670 Milwaukee Boulevard, Lehigh Acres.
And then K3 is just the other property, the 17250 State Road 82.
And you wanted to say that again? Because I was.
And basically, the two properties, I'm asking for the same thing I asked previously, for some type of a timeline and just breakdown of it, and an opportunity for input from the community on those properties.
Okay.
I know Ms. Giddens asked to push this, but I'm more than happy. I've got just a little bit of information to help guide this, and we can get you a more in-depth answer also. But so during the due diligence or feasibility time, or the investigation period, which is 6 months on a property this size, either of the two properties, K2 or K3, we'll be determining the best use of all or any of the property, and we'll bring those findings to a briefing to the board before ratification ever happens. And once we have a direction, then we'll go to DAC, EDAC, Site Selection Committee for recommendation to the board. So we're at the very beginning with these first two agenda items. It really kind of gets us rolling into the due diligence or feasibility part, so that we can determine what, if any, of both of these properties will serve the purposes that we need for our schools.
And I will ask again, for the record, to include the community as much as possible. And I will cite the example of the Tuckahoe and Gateway property several years ago. There was definite input and, discussion from the community. It's going to be their schools and locations and all that, and I think that we only owe them that input before we get to the point where we're saying, well, we've already done that, and this is where we're going to go. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, next question, approval of the Piggyback Lee County Board of County Commissioners contract miscellaneous professional services. Please explain miscellaneous expenses. And then another follow-up, I'm concerned approving miscellaneous professional services for multiple vendors with no details. Please provide exact details of what we are paying $300,000 for. Mr. Gemelli.
The planning department would use these vendors for items such as water management permitting, Army Corps permitting, feasibility and planning studies, engineering, land surveys. They would be tied to our budgeted entitlements needed for both property that we currently own as well as property that we might be pursuing. It states $300,000 for an annual piggyback over the 12 months. We're not required to use the piggyback or expend the $300,000. It's just that $300,000 was the number that we budgeted for the year if we were to use that piggyback.
Okay. Ms. Giovanelli, do you have any, I'm sorry, was that?
Mm-hmm, it was hers.
Ms. Giovanelli, do you have any questions?
I'm sorry. Yeah, so why would we just take this as it comes in? I just don't understand why it's just like an open-ended kind of thing.
It is, it's a proposal process, so we're able to use the different vendors that are on this piggyback to get proposals, multiple proposals for particular jobs, to pick the lowest proposal to move forward with a particular project. So there's no commitment to any one or any dollars until we actually accept a proposal for a particular project.
of the vendors?
I believe it's in the board agenda.
Okay. There was only a couple, though.
Happy to provide the entire list.
Okay.
That would be awesome.
I'll move on then to the next question. This one is K11, approval of the expenditure for the ITN indoor air quality, environmental consulting, asbestos lead abatement, microbial remediation, remodeling, and painting. Please provide a breakdown to date of what has been paid to each vendor in 3 separate total expenditures. Ms. Ebal.
Good afternoon again. The 3 vendors are American Management Resources Corporation, known as AMRC, Captain Steamer, and Fresh Air Solutions of Southwest Florida. The contract has 2 components, a Part A, which is consulting for investigation, which consists of asbestos testing and mold assessments, and then a Part B, which is corrective cleaning actions, which consists of mold remediation, coil cleaning, and fogging. AMRC is the only vendor approved for both Part A and Part B, as staff is also certified to conduct the investigations as a part of Part A. And then all 3 vendors are approved for Part B. Part B work is distributed by region, with AMRC serving the South Zone, Captain Steamer serving the West Zone, and Fresh Air Services serving the East Zone. Invoices on this contract from March 18th, 2020 through October 28th, 2020, which is the most current we have, were distributed as follows. AMRC received $1,190,142. Captain Steamer received $1,057,576, and Fresh Air received $1,160,445. And remember that AMRC's workload consists of invoices for both Part A and Part B.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. I think Ms. Ebal, you may.
Go ahead, Ms. Giovanelli.
Back on the piggyback.
Okay,
So that's just an open purchase order?
Could you did you understand her?
She asked, was it an open purchase order?
Thank you.
It can be.
Yes.
It could be.
Okay.
Is it what was the question? Was it an open purchase order? And the answer was it could
Yes, on the
be.
piggyback of the county commission.
Thank you.
All right, did you get an answer to your question?
That was a yes. I
Yeah, she-
believe.
yes.
It's an
All
open
right.
purchase order.
All right, then that takes us to the next one. K19, approval of the final payment, Lehigh Senior High School window replacement. Is this internal audit something required as compliance from the state?
The answer is that this review is established as part of a district best practices to have an independent audit of our facility development practices prior to final payment. So this is a district best practice.
All right, and that is all I have for agenda review questions on my list.
Okay. Are there any other questions that anybody has? Ms. Vaughn?
Yeah, there was a reference quite a bit earlier to the water coolers that were being established in the various schools. Where are we with that? Do we still have schools that haven't been provided with those touchless?
Yep.
Is that what they're called, the touchless system, or to fill the water bottles?
It's hand-free.
Yeah, but I don't remember the exact.
I just saw Jimmy
Yeah,
Thompson.
somebody, I think you mentioned it, and it sparked that thought.
I mentioned it because I was out of Gateway High School and they did a change to be able to add those to that particular project while it was still under construction. So Ms. Ebal is coming back up.
I apologize, I missed the question,
Has to do with the touchless water coolers.
the current status of them.
Current
Yeah, where are
status,
we
yeah.
with that? How many schools are still lacking
So we have all of our materials are in stock. We have them, and the schools have some of them in place. We are in the process of developing a schedule, and I certainly can get you more information by Friday to give you that complete schedule, but it's...
Yeah, it's kind of, I thought, and this is just trying to remember when we originally contracted with that company, I thought that we went with that company because they had the best numbers in stock.
So we do have the materials in stock, Ms. Vaughn. It's now about manpower to get them implemented, but we are developing a schedule that will allow us to finish the work, and as soon as we have that schedule, we will be happy to share it with you. But we have now received all of the material. Now it's about getting the work completed. And as you may recall, this is work that we are doing with our own staff.
Right.
So that's where the finishing work is.
Okay, so maybe on a board update, just how many schools are still needing that? Okay, thanks.
Happy to share the schedule for you so you know when to expect it completed.
I don't need the schedule necessarily, but how many schools are still lacking those coolers, whatever they're called?
Happy to get that information for you.
Does anyone else have any questions? I do have one comment, though. I have to thank Ms. Ebal, Dominic, Adam, and Courtney. I was able to attend all of the presentations for the proximity school, and based on what we had shared with them, they took that out, and everyone was better and better. So I just really have to say thank you, and even the ones that I've seen online, which I've been on many of those, thank you for hearing what we had to say, and thank you for sharing that with the community.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Adam and I met independently with Ms. Gittens last week for some additional comments, and we'll be doing some follow-up work based on her comments as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so is there anything for the good of the order? Ms. Morgan.
I don't know if this is for good of the order, but I was hoping that you've met with all of the members of the delegation, correct?
All but one.
Okay, I was just going to ask that you update us at some point about how those conversations went.
Okay.
And then I have a question for Ms. Gittens. I have heard from a constituent in Estero that you have been talking to leaders in Estero about the new school there, and I was wondering if you would share your, your observations.
And thank you for bringing that up, because as Ms. Patrica is our liaison in that area, and I was going to ask if she could give us an update, because we haven't heard recently on her side of what is going on there.
But I was asking about your comments, your communications with leaders in Estero, the issues you've been raising, and if you would share those with us.
Okay, and it is not issues I have been raising. I was interested in finding out more about the project, so I did attend the zoning meeting last week, and I have met with some other people in the community. I don't know, leaders, whatever, they're Estero community members, and their concerns are similar to what you've all heard. The fact that with the what I lost the name of it, but the animals and the wet zones and the water runoff, and I must say I was a little taken aback when I was sitting there. I did not participate in the zoning meeting. I just went and observed. And it began with our representative from Johnson Engineering stating that, naming 4 schools and saying that it was really necessary to do this now because these schools were 112% over capacity. And some of the things I heard, it was concerning because it's not what we've heard. And looking at the data, it's not what the data says. And I've watched several of the meetings, and one of them, it was stated that, we need this project now because in 2023, there's going to be 1,000 extra students in the area. And then the next time, it's because we are so overcrowded right now that we need to have the schools now. I suggest that all of you go back and just look at the meetings and, draw your own conclusions. Some of the community people that have spoken to me, because I was there, felt that they weren't necessarily being heard by the things that they said, the fact that there was wildlife, the water runoff, and some of the other things that are happening. So I just wanted to hear, and that's what I did. So I suggest the rest of you watch the meetings, listen, and ask questions that you might have as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will certainly give my update tomorrow. I'll be prepared for that. And maybe you can do the same, Chris, or Ms. Patrica.
I don't know if Ms. Gittens thinks that we shared incorrect information with her. I don't believe that to be the case. I think we've shared accurate.
Not with me. This was at the zoning meeting. And it's on tape because I went back and watched it again. And I don't know if someone has the wrong information, but the information that was shared is that these schools are necessary because of the vast growth in that area. And that it was at 112%. And I don't know of any other areas besides the East Zone. Well, there are a few that are that much over capacity.
So we have shared with you that we are over capacity in the south part of the county.
Yes, but not more than in the East Zone. And this statement was 112 or something percent. So maybe it's that we need to see how these numbers are derived. And I know that there is a fish configuration that, taking the number of seats and all of that, and there's 90% for one group like high schools and 70 for another. I understand that there's all of that there. Excuse me, but it's just hard to understand how the numbers are derived.
And is it because I think a lot of times we think of Estero Bonita as being one area. We're in South. So all of these kids here all go that way. So that's
But I'm not
all
talking about the South. I'm talking about specific schools and areas.
But that
And when I
helps.
look at the data,
But that is the data for the South Zone, though, correct? When you utilize, you're taking everybody
Yeah,
into
we've
perspective.
reported a number of times that we definitely have a need to build in that area of the county as well.
right, and I understand that. And your statements, though, in these meetings, you can go back and look at them, were that 102%. Several of you have said that. Mr. Savage said initially when we talked about the project, 102%. And I saw that on the documentation. So basically, I'm not trying to argue. What I'm trying to say is, if someone has incorrect information and they are sharing that with the community, then it should be looked into and corrected, that we should have the same information here as is given out in the community. That's where we get into issues.
No, thank you. And we should be consistent across the board. You're right. So are there any other comments or questions? Dr. Atkins?
Whenever you're done, I just have a couple
Yes,
things I want to make sure
we're done,
come
so
to your
please.
attention.
And when will we hear Ms. Patrica's report on what?
She'll do tomorrow.
Okay.
After the briefing. Is that correct, Ms.
Well,
Patrica?
there's no place on the agenda for board reports or.
Oh,
board
yeah,
member
tomorrow.
comments,
We both
so-
will do them tomorrow. Dr. Atkins, please.
Okay, just a couple reminders. It was in the board update, but we will be bringing forward the TALC and the SPALC salary schedules good cause. So Great job for the teams bringing that across the finish line. That also gives us the opportunity to bring the other two salary schedules forward. We're going to go ahead and do that on the next board agenda, so not this one. So Tauck and Spauk will be this time. Admin and salary schedule N will be next time. That gives the board, I think, enough opportunity to get your questions answered on those schedules as well. Also, you probably saw this over the weekend. The Florida Department of Education responded to our Castaldi report and did give a thumbs up. So that's really good news for the district, that we can go forward with the rebuild of that particular campus in whole.
Masks can't hide Ms. Jordan's smile on that one.
I was happy all weekend, thank you.
And, I did ask the team to reach out to Miss Ware and make sure she
I
was
already
aware.
did.
Oh, you already did?
Yes, I
Okay,
did.
that's good to know. 240 vaccines between 2 and 6 today are being conducted, so that's some good news. Again, just a reminder to the public, these are employees 65 and older and school nurses only. So, it is restricted, but 240 vaccines. Thank you, Department of Health, and Lauren Stillwell and her team. And then I did visit both Gateway and MM, and just very happy to come back and report that Gateway High School is just literally on its last punch list, so we're looking to hopefully get receipt of that project or property in the very, very near future. It could be as early as March. And then MM, Scott, I know, is working on when that will be, but they are on time, probably a little bit ahead of time, actually. And the reason for both of these projects and others, as you know, is that the district was able to take advantage of the fact that many of our contractors did not have work during the COVID shutdown, so we were able to actually accelerate a number of our projects. Gateway High School, if you can just imagine this, there were no walls up at Gateway High School a year ago. Okay, literally, the walls were not up. And here we are in January, and that building is practically completed. They're just literally on the final punch list on that building. So pretty remarkable progress, and I'll be looking forward to hopefully doing some ribbon cuttings on these buildings in the very, very near future. That's all I have to report.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bruno, did you have any comments?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, seeing none, the time is 3:10. This meeting is adjourned, and we will meet back here at 3:30. Thank you. 3:32? 3:30 on the dot.